My mother-in-law crashed my wedding night. Even her own children can't tolerate her.
Everybody hates this mother-in-law.
Sorry, this is a little long, but I feel like some backstory is relevant to the situation. All names and locations have been changed. To start, my mother-in-law, Stacy, 50 female, is a self-absorbed person, and my now husband, Jake, 27 male, has always known this about her, but her self-absorbed person icy tendencies usually were only really bad towards the men she was dating. Since she sees her kids doing well as a reflection on things she has done right versus things that have been accomplished on their own. By the way, this comes from Jana Eve Taylor, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/OK Storytime subreddit. So the first few years that I, 25 female, dated her son, she was very welcoming and kind to me, even buying me gifts and wanting to make plans to spend time with me, even voicing her support for us to get married and have children. I am more of an introvert personality, so I never really committed to making plans with her, but it was nice to feel like she liked me. I do not have a good relationship with either of my parents, so I would always encourage Jake to respond to his mother because she genuinely cares about him and loves him in her own way. He didn't have a bad relationship with her per se, but he didn't particularly want to be around her because of her behavior and narcissism. Moving a few states over with me seemed to help their relationship because he didn't feel obligated to see her as often, and it was more on his terms for planned visits. Every year, Stacy and her boyfriend, Gary, 60 male, would travel to where we live and stay for 4 to 5 days. Jake and I don't look forward to this particularly, but the first few times it went well for the most part. There would be just moments where Gary, who is a very kind and funny man, would say something casual that would set her off for no reason, which would lead to a very uncomfortable rest of the day. One time we went to dinner and Gary ordered a burger and fries. Stacy also ordered a burger, but when the waitress asked if fries were okay, Stacy said she wanted chips. When her food came out and she saw Gary's fries and her chips, she realized she wanted the fries and asked him to trade. He politely said he didn't want chips, but could call over the waitress to order her a side of fries. She went off.
Oh, she'd be going out of the door because that's where I'd be putting her. I'd say, you're gone. Goodbye. I'm literally like, oh, you want fries? Oh, you didn't get fries? Now you want fries? I'll order you fries. And you're going to yell at me about that? Get out. Get out of here.
I didn't think that was an option. I thought if your girlfriend wanted your food, you had to switch.
I didn't know you could. Now you're learning that you don't have to do that.
Yeah. What? You can ask the waitress to come over and work out a deal?
In fact, I think ordering her another side is even a better move. That's how much I care about you. One side of fries.
Dang,
that's how much I care about you.
She started yelling at him in the middle of the restaurant about how rude and selfish he was and that he'll eat anything, so it shouldn't matter if they just trade. Gary can be confrontational back, but it usually takes a while to push him to the point where he wants to fight back. So he was trying to calmly explain to her that they could just order more fries to calm her down, which had the opposite effect. This went on for way too long than it needed to until we eventually paid and left. Every single time they came to visit, something like this would occur. Gary was incredibly nice to me and almost reminded me of a father figure that I wish I could have. So these encounters would break my heart. I started really dreading their visits and got more and more quiet around her because she's an introvert.
It's like the death spiral. Yeah. It just gets worse and worse.
Jake and I got engaged after 5 years of dating. We both decided to buy a house first and have a small backyard wedding since we don't know a large amount of people, and it felt it was more about the memories than the venue and money spent. That's super smart. Dakota might agree with that.
I agree.
A few months prior to our set wedding date, Stacy and Gary came for their annual visit. With the purchase of our house, the previous owners left this huge and fancy grill since they couldn't take it with them. Neither Jake nor I owned or used a grill. So Gary brought all of his personal things from home to clean the grill, filled the propane tank, and even cooked us a wonderful steak dinner. He was very kind and delicious. This is probably 3 p.m. on a sunny weekend day, and we were going to play some game in the backyard. Gary even cleaned up our plates and put the leftovers in the fridge. Well, Stacy decided she didn't want to wait on him anymore and went in the house where he was cleaning up and started screaming at him to hurry up because he was making us wait. Stacy, girl, do you even realize what you got here?
Why are you doing this?
What's up?
What's going on? Like, what is it? What's making you do this?
Yeah, dude, this guy cooks steak and cleans up after himself.
And he's the worst. What's going on?
All I said was, "It's really okay. We aren't in a hurry," in a playful tone to try and calm her down. She stopped yelling at him, came back outside, where a few minutes later, we started our game. A few hours after this, I was getting ready for bed and came down to get water, where I saw Stacy and my now husband, Jake, on our patio having a heated conversation. I didn't want to snoop, so I just went to bed. Come to find out, this conversation was, in my husband's words, her yearly therapy session, where she was ranting to him about how I spoke to her and trying to figure out why I didn't like her anymore. He told her that it wasn't like that. It was about how she treats Gary and that nobody likes how she treats him. Jake told me later that they just kept going in circles and his mother refused to see his perspective and was gaslighting him and playing the victim. My husband is great though and sees right through this every time, but eventually just gives up. Yeah, because after a while, what can you do?
After a while, it's like it's over. It's what this person's not going to change. You're just going to be in this perpetual cycle of being upset for no good reason.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't get over you ask specifically for the chips, then you realize you want the fries, but then you have to have my fries instead of just more fries. That's whack.
And then I cook steak, I clean it up, and while I'm cleaning up, being a responsible guest, you yell at me because it's taking too much time.
Trash. That's trash behavior.
I'm just trying to figure out if Gary is actually the bad guy. Like, in a world, like, what kind of world, what does Gary have to do in order to deserve this?
It's just like his facial expressions are so bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, she's like, can I have some of your fries? And he just goes. And she's like, you always do this. You always give me the evil eye and growl at me when I ask for your fries. That's probably not what's happening, though.
Yeah, no.
That's probably not what's happening.
Months later now, my mother-in-law and a bunch of our friends/families from out of state all come to stay at our house for our wedding weekend. We had the entire set of groomsmen staying in our basement, along with my father-in-law, Matt, 55 male, and my sister-in-law, Amy, 32 female, all in our house, so it was packed. Everything was going great, though, and everyone pitched in to help set up our backyard, make food, and plan for the big day. I was honestly surprised because my mother-in-law was mostly quiet and helpful. When assigned a task, she was great at focusing on that and getting it done, which I was grateful for. The actual day of the wedding was also good. The only part that, looking back now, was weird is she kept asking me why my mother wasn't going to be at the wedding. Not wanting to have that conversation on my wedding day, I kept saying that we can talk about it sometime over the next few days she's in town if she really wanted to know. Little did I know she would ask several of my family members that same question during the wedding, try and get the scoop on my relationship with my mother.
This person's terrible.
Since we had our wedding in our backyard in the fall, we decided to do the ceremony and cake/dancing first and booked a private room in a restaurant afterwards for the reception since it would be too cold for most people to want to stay outside that long. The ceremony was amazing. The backyard decorations really turned out exactly how we both wanted it, and it was really nice having everyone in the same place. Jake and I are truly in love and we're so happy to be married. We had a few drinks, some dancing, and then it was time to relocate to the venue. To get to the venue, my husband drove with his dad, mom, and sister all in the back seat since they flew in and didn't have transportation. Sister-in-law Amy was really great and supportive for the entire time. She's good at planning and was very helpful to getting things set up. Unfortunately for her though, she has not had a very good few years, having got married and divorced, and also her apartment burnt down and she lost all of her belongings right after she moved to the other side of the country.
Dude, that's rough.
During the reception, she got emotional and decided to step out of our room and got to sit at the bar since she didn't want to bring the mood down on our big day. Dude, Amy is a freaking angel. That is the amount of selfishness you need to have in order to do that. Like, you're like going through it and like you're just going to remove yourself. Like, not saying you should do that, but like that is huge part on Amy.
Yeah, just knowing that your situation's going to take away from their day. Even though it's like,
it's heavy.
Not your fault.
Yeah, and you got to deal with it.
People are just going to be like, oh my God, you hear about what happened? Or like the whole wedding. And then it's like, I'm not going to make that about me.
Who's in the chat for Amy? We didn't even notice and now appreciate her effort, even though we wouldn't have minded. Yeah, sounds right. My husband and I are still unclear on the particulars of what was said between them, but mother-in-law went out and confronted sister-in-law at the bar for stepping out and was scolding her to grow up and get over it. Wow.
Why don't you just get out of it? The venue that we're all in, to leave, go, be gone.
I feel like mother-in-law is about to have a similar experience, though.
Just get these people out.
Yeah. We were none the wiser of any issues until sister-in-law comes flying back into the room with angry tears streaking down her face, and mother-in-law hot on her trail, still yelling. Jay got in between them, and we ended up putting them on opposite sides of the room for the rest of the receptions, which worked temporarily. But remember, we all drove together. Sister-in-law was going to Uber, but it was raining and late, so Jake and I convinced her to just get in the car, and I would take her place in the back seat so she didn't have to sit next to Stacy. Car ride was only 11 minutes long, and we naively thought we could make it home.
11 minutes?
11 minutes! Can we do this, dude? You know what I'm putting on for the 11 minutes?
Just Future?
No. That's funny. Dude, Bohemian Rhapsody. 2 and 11. Well, I'm just playing that. I don't even care what's happening. I'm just blasting that stuff all the way.
I'm playing the remixed version of Dragonfly by Lenny Kravitz.
What are you playing, Keon? What are you playing in that 11 minutes to make sure that no one's talking in the car?
I would play Bonfire by Childish Gambino.
All right, Jake and father-in-law were casually chatting about Metallica for the first few minutes of the ride, just trying to say something to ease some of the tension in the car. It took about 3 or 4 minutes for mother-in-law not to be able to contain it anymore, and she interrupted the men and started screaming at her daughter. Sister-in-law then turned and was screaming back, having had enough at that point. All I did was hold back my hands out between them to get their attention and calmly just said, "Can we please wait until we get home? We're only 5 minutes away." Mother-in-law then turned her rage onto me and started screaming at me for saying stuff like I never liked her, and started all this mess and putting her finger in my face. I was a little wasted and feeling spicy at this point, so I started screaming back at her, and I honestly couldn't tell you what was said after that. I do vividly remember the Metallica playing in the background, which definitely
No way,
help.
dude. I was gonna joke that should be what was playing.
Master of Puppets, bro.
Or just
Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
Just like it just raging you up. That's probably why.
Impersonate me. All that I see. Absolute.
Jake, trying to drive through this chaos, took a look behind him and saw no other cars on the road and decided to take our car from 45 miles an hour to 0 in about 2 seconds flat, effectively silencing everyone in the car. My husband is the most calm and patient man I've ever met, but he's no pushover. I have never seen him as mad as he was in that moment when he turned around to his mother. He told her that if he heard another peep from her before we got home, that she would never see him again and that he was not playing around. She started to argue with him, but the look he gave her shut her up. We got home and everyone dispersed to their own rooms. My husband and I both got ready for bed and were committed to just hiding out for the rest of the night since we were exhausted. He was very apologetic for me for his mother's behavior, but I really felt bad for him having to deal with that on his wedding night, especially from someone who was supposed to make things easier. He went downstairs to get my cat and a glass of water, and we were just planning to sleep. After about 15 minutes, he hadn't come back, so I went to look for him. Our cat is indoor/outdoor, so I thought he might be outside looking for her and wanted to go help. I opened our bedroom door, and Jake and mother-in-law Stacy were at the top of our staircase having a tense conversation. Not wanting to get back in the middle of it, I closed our door almost all the way, wanting to listen to what's going on just in case he needed a rescue. Turns out that my sister-in-law and father-in-law were downstairs chatting about the night when Jake went down for water. On his way back up, mother-in-law was waiting on the stairs and ambushed him. She was eavesdropping on their conversation and couldn't believe they would talk bad about her like that.
Oh, you can't believe it, huh? You can't believe that? You don't believe that?
So, conflict number 1, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that was pretty crappy. Conflict number 2. Yeah, I'd be going down that whole list right there.
Dude, you literally told the woman who lost her whole life at the bar
To grow up.
to get over it and grow up. You suck. You're a horrible person. And the fact that anyone tolerates you for 5 seconds should be a blessing to you.
Dude, wait, Keon, when was this posted? Because I have a hot take that if this happened within the last 2 months, if this was posted the last 2 months, Amy's stuff probably would have been in the fires around here. Like, she probably moved to LA, moved across the country to LA after getting divorced.
Oh, that could be it. That would make sense.
Jake told her to just go to bed and they would talk the next day, but she wouldn't let him go. She kept asking to explain what she'd done wrong and was making it hard for him to pass her. Well, that is when I opened the door and swiftly closed it. I could barely hear their conversation until she yelled, "I know you're there, Missy!" and taunted me to come out of my bedroom.
You know what I would do, honestly, if she was taunting me to come out of my bedroom?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I would just open the door and I'd go, and then I'd close it again. Like, I would just start messing with her. Like,
I opened the door and leaned into the frame, trying to stay calm, but super over the entire situation at this point. Stacy then started to step to me in my own home, saying stuff like, "I don't know what I ever did to you," and essentially blaming everything on me. When Jake realized how physically close to me she was getting, he put himself between us and sternly told her to go to bed. She then said something along the lines of, "This is how I get treated for paying for everything? Girl, you just paid for the cheapest wedding ever, okay?"
I'm gonna find out exactly how much you paid. I'm gonna get that money and I'm gonna throw it at you. And it's gonna
pennies.
be all nickels and pennies, dimes and quarters.
That way, whenever you go to the bank and you have to put them in the slots, they're not all pennies, so you have to get different things. Which is not close to the truth, since all she paid for was the reception dinner, which we didn't even ask her to do, considering she grabbed the check out of my husband's hand and voluntarily paid for it. He again told her to go to bed, and after a few more minutes of peddling with her to stop, he had enough and took the cash she had on him, which was probably $50 or more, that she had paid for the food, and threw it down the hallway at her and took her to get the F out of our house.
Boom! Throw that money. Bang!
That's crazy.
Well, it's crazy when you volunteer to pay for something and then later just use it as a thing where it's like, well, I guess that's what I get for paying. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, what, so now you're going to act like that's something you can hold over me?
Yeah,
because you offered to do it.
We both at this point knew we weren't getting sleep anytime soon, so we joined father-in-law and sister-in-law downstairs. Every 20 minutes, Jake would go back up and check in on mother-in-law's progress of getting her stuff packed and finding a hotel. He was being very patient considering she was wasted, and it was about 3 o'clock at this point, but was not letting up on punting her out. Eventually, she booked a hotel and had her things together, which he carried downstairs for her, and even agreed to drive her there on the condition that she would not talk to him. He says that she tried, but he just sat there and acted like he was an Uber driver. Jake and sister-in-law weren't optimistic, but they were hoping that mother-in-law would come to her senses after sobering up and getting some rest. Well, what do we think here? Did that happen?
Look, I don't know. Kick her in the morning, man. If your mom's like drunk and it's 3 a.m., just like let her sleep.
She's
And
not,
then
though.
Take care of it in the morning.
She's not. He's telling her, go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. And she's just bickering with him.
Well, isn't he telling her to pack?
Well, because she wouldn't go to bed, because she kept like, he's like, you know what, get out of my house. He did it. He tried. He tried. That unfortunately isn't what happened. She doubled down the next day and sent my husband about 4 or 5 long texts about how this entire thing was my fault somehow, and that I'm an evil mother hater, and that I'm trying to break apart their mother/son relationship. Jake typed out a well-written response with his perspective on everything that happened as a last-ditch effort to get her to understand, and to also have a written account while things were fresh in his memory. But self-absorbed person can't take responsibility for anything, and she is convinced that she is the victim.
Look, and I don't know if I get misconstrued when I said like she's drunk, just let her go to sleep. It's like her being drunk doesn't excuse her behavior at all. It doesn't make it. Nothing what she's done is okay. It's just more like it's 3 a.m. She's drunk. Trying to get her to pack and get out of your house right now is going to be like infinitely more difficult.
Well, he did that.
Than just waiting to the next day.
That's what he did. Dakota, you're missing it. He tried to tell her to go to bed, and he's like, the only thing that she's gonna do is have to get out of my house.
I thought it went straight from he threw the money at her, and then he
No,
was
you're
getting packed up and you're leaving
So they were
now.
at the top of the stairs. He's like, I don't want to have this conversation. Go to bed, please. I don't want to have this conversation. Go to bed, please. Doing it for probably 15 to 20 minutes, and then she was not listening. And then he was like, I'm done. You're gonna throw in my face that you're paying for something. Get out of my house. So back on it. So now she's still convinced that she's the victim. My husband has not seen or talked to her since that weekend. He said he's going to do nothing with her until she deeply apologizes to both of us and sister-in-law for what went down and takes accountability for it, which will likely never happen. She still blames me, even though I had the least involvement out of anyone. I know Jake is sad about the situation, even though he didn't particularly care to spend time with her before. Cutting ties with family is never easy, especially when it didn't have to be this way. And by the way, for you to have the only happiness in this life is if you go to your favorite podcast platform, search up OK Storytime, and you will hear a plethora of stories just like these. How many days are we at, Dakota?
50.
And counting.
On the bride's side, we've been happily married for 2 years now and are expecting our first child, which she will likely never get the chance to meet. I read these things all the time where the man doesn't stick up for his wife, and I'm beyond grateful that my husband stuck up for me. Dude, facts. Hope this story is entertaining, LOL. It gives us a good laugh now, and we've healed and move on. Okay, we got 2 comments left. Comment number 1. Jake is an absolute jewel and has a very shiny spine. You are blessed to have him. A word of warning, though. I don't know if your nightmare of a mother-in-law knows about your pregnancy or not, but if she does find out, be prepared for all kinds of love bombing, because she's going to want to be a grandma. That's going to require a whole new set of boundaries if you decide to let her be a part of the baby's life at all. Best wishes for a safe pregnancy and a beautiful, healthy baby. OP replies, we honestly don't know if she knows. His sisters have said they didn't tell her, so unless one of his aunts or random family member that friended on Facebook did, she still doesn't know. We've talked about this a lot recently and have pretty much both agreed that even if someday my husband chooses to let her back in our lives, it won't be the same, and she won't ever be allowed to stay overnight in our home or be alone with our children. He sees right through her, and I'm not too worried about the love bombing. Thank you for the best wishes. We're due in about 2 months and are thrilled. My husband is going to be the best dad. Comment number 2. So you still talk to father-in-law? OP, yeah, they divorced when my husband was very young and he was completely on our side with everything. And that's it.
They divorced?
Husband, father-in-law and mother-in-law.
Well, great, because she sucked.
Yeah.
I'm sure dad's better off.